welcome to the Wednesday Wrap-Up. I am Jessica Potts, a business strategist. I work with female business owners in helping them increase their revenue by developing a customer and product strategy paired with a marketing plan to start attracting your ideal customers. This week, it's all about mindset. When we launch our business, words like flexibility and freedom dance around in our head. But the number one culprit that will ruin any chance of having those two precious commodities is productivity. I've asked Karla Morgenstein on the show today to talk all about productivity. She's sharing her story of how chasing shiny objects when she first launched ultimately halted her moving the dial forward within her business. So we're going to be chatting about common things we've all done that's impeding us from doing things smarter, faster, and better in our business. Tune in now to learn how to become more productive to get more done in less time. I'm Jessica Potts, a business strategist, and this week on the Wednesday Wrap-Up, I have Karla Morgenstein, who is a productivity coach and business mentor, who is passionate about helping mama entrepreneurs work smarter so they can increase their profits and quality time with their families. I'm really excited about having Karla on the show today because she is coming on to talk about something that really resonates with pretty much 98% of business owners, and that is mind shift struggles that she went through when she first launched her business. So welcome, Karla, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So can you tell us a little first of how you transitioned from corporate America into owning your own business and why you chose to be a productivity coach?
Absolutely. So I spent over 14 years in corporate, and my entire career I worked in supply chain management. So it was a lot of project management and planning and, figuring out how we could increase productivity and have more efficient processes. So I knew that that was a skill set that I had really developed over several years, and it would be a good way to, transfer that into the online space. But yeah, I'm a mom of two little girls, and I was really busy hustling in corporate, working way more hours than I wanted to. I didn't have a lot of time to spend with my family between all the hours and travel. So I decided to make the leap and start my own business.
So I have to tell you, one of the biggest things that I say about being a business owner is we launch our businesses to have more freedom and flexibility, but 9 times out of 10, we tend to get so bogged down. And one of the biggest things is productivity, because we're not really being productive in areas that's impacting our business in a positive way. And we're going to be talking about some of those things today as we explore your mind shift struggles that you have. So can you tell us a little what this looks like?
When I made that transition from corporate to starting my own business, I honestly thought it was going to be super simple. I had tons of business experience, and I thought, how hard can this be? But when I came into the online space, I realized that it's actually very noisy. In the very beginning, a big part of it for me was shiny object syndrome. So there were so many free offers out there, from checklists to free training series, like all kinds of free resources out there that I wanted to get my hands on. And the thing with that is, a lot of those resources, they can contradict each other, or they can give you a little piece of the puzzle and make you feel like you need more information. And it can make you feel like you can't take any steps forward in your business because you don't have enough information today. So it becomes a never-ending cycle because you just keep going after more and more free resources instead of just stopping working with what you have now. Shiny object syndrome, it really just made me stay stagnant in my business in the beginning because I was really doubting myself and just, seeing these very successful entrepreneurs providing this information, not knowing what to do with it exactly, and not finding my way as a result. It was just a never ending quest for success that I just couldn't reach.
I've been there. So when I launched my business, I was in corporate America. And so building an email list was something that I really just didn't know. I didn't even have an email, a CRM hooked into my website until probably 7 or 8 months afterwards. And that was because of the, going online and looking and saying, oh, well, look at these freebies and all of these people stating they're making 7 figures a year and you can do everything I'm doing to get here. But that didn't feel authentic. It didn't feel genuine for my business. And it's essentially self-sabotaging ourselves, right? When we are not making the right decisions and the right steps, and instead of just like getting rid of all that noise and focusing on what works for us and what feels authentic and really networking and getting business, that's where it's at. And so I am 100% with you. What was your next step? You're like, okay, so I am stunting my growth. I'm not making any money. My mailbox is probably filled with hundreds of emails, because once they have your email address, they're sending you emails every single day. And then they're like, hey, you need to buy my $2,000 product. So at that point, what was your next step?
Well, I started to notice that continuous cycle of searching for that golden ticket of success was actually making me feel like I wasn't good enough. Like where I was then in the beginning was not good enough. But really, that's not true. A productivity coach, having 14 years of experience in that industry of process improvement and learning how to do things smarter, better, faster, is a lot of experience to bring to the table. What that does when you get stuck in that mindset is you're constantly looking at what other people are doing, and you don't actually sit back and look at all the great things that you have to offer. So I knew that I had to find a way to keep myself moving forward, to keep taking action, because the more action that you take, the more confident you become. So the first thing that I did, I put a schedule in place around my family because, like I said, I work from home and I have 2 small children. And I just figured out, what do I need to do and when, and how can I create something that I can actually follow through with. So when I have a plan for what I'm going to do and then I follow it, then I'm more focused on getting things done than looking all around me. Another thing that I did was just becoming aware of the things that were tripping me up. Was it the shiny objects? Was it scrolling on social media? That's a huge one for people that I talk to. Getting stuck in that scroll can be such a time waster and keep us stuck. And it's funny because when you're scrolling on social media, I think sometimes we can kind of trick ourselves into thinking that we're actually doing market research. But it's not research at all, because it always comes back to looking at what everyone else is doing and comparing it to where you are today. So just being mindful of those things that you're doing are keeping you from taking action and moving the needle forward in your business. And then the third thing is just being more intentional about how you're spending your time. Like I said, having a schedule in place is one thing, but then creating some routines so that you can follow that schedule. So let's say, for example, you want to create a morning routine. I've talked to so many people who say, I really want to write in my journal. I really want to have a routine, but I just wake up too late and my kids get up in the morning and interrupt me and I just don't get a chance to do it. And then I don't do it at all. Instead of that you want to do a morning routine, you can give yourself like a visual cue. So put your journal in a place where you'll write in it. If you're not getting a chance to write in it first thing in the morning, let's say you had it by your bed and you don't have time to write in it first thing in the morning. Well, maybe you put it next to the coffee pot, or maybe you put it next to your workspace or some place where you know you're going to open that journal and write in it when you have time. So just kind of think about what your patterns are, what your activities are throughout the day, and ways that you can be more intentional to set yourself up for success. And then in addition to that, just being more intentional about your thought patterns. Like, what types of things do you tend to think about make you feel bad about where you are? And start thinking more positively about what the possibilities are for your business, what your goals are, and just be more mindful of what your headspace is and where your thoughts are going, because what you think about is becomes what you feel, right? And how you feel affects how you work in your business. That setting those intentions and just being very purposeful with how you're spending your time and the thoughts that you're thinking can go such a long way.
I love everything you just said, and I am fully on board. I find that social media is very interesting because not only are we scrolling, but we're comparing ourselves. We think badly about ourselves. That
Mhm.
confidence level goes down. It's almost like a catch-22, right? I have an app where I can't open social media during the day. I also have a Chrome plugin where I can't see my Facebook feed. I can only go on and like post in like, if I'm posting in a group or posting on my own face or if I'm posting for a client. That way I don't have that distraction. I love
Mhm.
that. And I'm a big believer also in morning routines. And if I don't do my morning routine, it impacts my day in small little increments.
Building those consistent routines make it easier for you to do it over time, right? The more you get structure in place for yourself, then the harder it is to break it because you start doing it without even thinking about it. It just becomes a habit.
So I've read what habits are like 30 days. It takes about 30 days to create a good habit. I think it's quicker to create a bad habit, but
Right, right. I've read different amounts of time. So some people have said it's like 20 days, and some people have said it's like 60 days. I think it really depends on the person and what their experiences are and what type of habit they're trying to either create or change.
when I first start working with a client, the very first thing that we do is vision. What is your long-term vision for this company? And I tell them it's so vital that we do this because you will not be swayed by shiny objects. Because if that shiny object doesn't fit into your long-term vision, you're derailing yourself, you're creating more time. And it's so huge because in this journey from A to B, which I went to like A to C to D, to Z, and then over to B, and it took me way longer. And one of the things I said was, I wish I would have hired like a business coach or a strategist to help me not fall into those pitfalls, because everything that you have said, I did myself. And if you and I did it, that means that the majority of people out there are probably doing it as well.
Right. No, I love that idea about your vision because I think that as you're becoming more intentional about how you spend your time, if you're thinking about your vision, is this activity I'm doing getting me closer to that vision or not? It's going to help you make better choices about how you spend your time. So that's such a great activity.
And I do my vision not just for my company. So it's really encompassing all of my life. And if certain things don't fall into that vision, I tend to like say no. It's easier to say no. Like if I know that I've got to get in shape or whatnot, I'm going to say no to my girlfriends going to happy hour, because chances are I'm going to sabotage myself and not get up for that 6 a.m. boot camp class,
Mhm.
because I
Right.
drink too much, and we subconsciously do that so many times.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because it's so important to think about your life as a whole in all aspects of your business, whether it's your vision, whether it's your schedule, whether it's your daily to-dos. Like if you're not thinking about your business, your family, and yourself, all the things that are important to you when you put your plans together, you're going to end up feeling out of balance. And although true balance is really not a thing, like there's always going to be something that feels out of balance. But if you're really sitting back and thinking holistically about everything in your life and what your goals are for yourself, like your personal goals and your business goals, I think that makes a huge difference with the outcomes that you reach.
I agree, because I feel like if you don't start looking at your family, especially if you have children and how they're going to integrate, then one's going to outweigh the other, and then you're going to be unhappy, and probably your family is going to be unhappy as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really my last question for you. So from going from almost like a fluster, you're feeling overwhelmed, you know that you're not getting things done, to starting to really plan your days and really putting your high productivity items first.
Mm-hmm.
What changed? What was the ultimate change that you saw within your business and your personal life?
Everybody talks about not having enough time. I just don't have enough time. And the reality is, the amount of time we have is not changing, right? So we just have to be more intentional about how we spend the time that we have. And I really found that my stress level came down. I didn't feel so overwhelmed because I was planning things out and making use of small pockets of time that I could find. If you have like 30 minutes here and there, a lot of people will just think, well, that's not enough time to get anything done. So I'm just going to scroll on social media or whatever. But actually, if you have a plan and there are certain things that you can get done during that time, you can make a huge amount of progress over the course of a week. Let's say you have 30 minutes a day. That's 2.5 hours of time that you could be spending on a project, just as an example. So when I started to be more intentional and notice what was distracting me, how I could make changes in my habits and my patterns, then I just felt a lot better about my business and I was able to get more done. The thing is I think a lot of people who come into the online space to start a business, their big goal is to be happy, right? They want to do something that makes them happy. And when they feel stressed and overwhelmed, then they don't feel happy. It's not what they hoped for. And it ends up bogging them down instead of helping them shine their light. So that was really the big shift that I made that really helped me make good progress in my business.
I love this interview so much because it resonates with me so deeply. Every time thing you say, I'm like, yes, been there. Check mark, check mark. I started to plan my weeks and then like plan my content. And,
Mhm.
and once I started doing all that, it was amazing the amount of hours that I got back. And I now take off half a day on Friday. No,
Mhm.
probably 3 out of 4 a month.
Yeah.
I don't feel guilty about it because now I also only focus my time on things that are impacting my business and moving it forward. Because I spent so much time in the past just like taking hours and hours and hours to write content and create all these posts. And I was like, well, I'm not getting clients this way. And so I rechanged, and now I do other things, like I do networking events and things like that, because I tend to get clients that way. That
Mhm.
does not work for everybody. It works for me. So that's what I tell my clients. I'm like, we want to do things that are hitting our bottom line. And that way you're not, because how many times have you spent like 7 hours on like creating content, writing posts? And I'm like, but you're not even filtering people in and getting business. So it's like, I'm not saying it's wasted time, because that content may bring someone in over time, but you've got to like really focus in. And another thing that I started doing, I give myself time slots. I'm like, okay, I've got to write this blog post. I have an hour and a half, and I put a timer on. Do you remember like in high school or elementary school, and you'd be taking a test and they'd be like, time's up, put your pencils down.
Yeah.
And when I'm writing that blog post, it is not going back and editing. It is literally just getting the thought on
Mhm.
the paper. And then I give myself another 30 minutes to go back and edit it later. I'm not spending all day long doing these blog posts. I know mentally I only have a allotted amount of time, and then I don't allow myself to have any more. So I know I have to finish it. And that
Right.
means that I turn my email off. That means I turn my phone on silent. That means that I turn off all of my notifications. Because how many times have we also been working? We're like, oh, look, Target's having a sale. Let me go check that out. And then like 20 minutes later, you're trying to get back into that mindset of writing that blog. And you're like, it's just crazy. And my
Mm-hmm.
other thing, I know I'm like on a vent now. The other thing I hate is when people are like, well, can't you multitask? No, I cannot multitask. I cannot write a blog and talk on the phone at the same time. Like, it's just not mentally there for me.
You know what? It's funny because multitasking is really not even a thing. I remember back in the day when I think it was when I was first applying for jobs, like after college, and people talked about multitasking being a strength, but really
Yes.
it's not even a thing. Like your brain physically cannot truly focus on more than one thing at once. So all you end up doing is switching from one thing to the next really quickly, and it's not good for your brain at all. Like it's not how it's made to process things. So you're actually hurting yourself when you try to multitask. It's much better to just focus on one thing and then focus on the next thing and not try to do more than one thing at once.
I took 90-day years ago with Todd Herman.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of the things that he said was that they did a study in a large, like electrical company, like, did like Georgia Power. I live in the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
And what they found was that on average, people were working 29 minutes a day because they were constantly checking emails, constantly going into meetings, and they weren't actually getting real work done. And like when I worked in corporate America, how many times did we go to meetings that I should not even have been in? Number one.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
two, we are not even moving anything forward in that meeting. It was just like, okay, we're going to meet because we need to meet,
Yeah.
And so I love that about being an entrepreneur, is that I really get to dictate my schedule. And it's so funny because sometimes people will be like, well, do you want to jump on a call for that? I'm like, no, just send me an email on that one. Because, because we just get so bogged down and not actually being productive.
Mm-hmm. It happens all the time. And I think that people are so used to being interrupted that they're not even thinking about what that does to their day. So like going back to like that mindfulness and being intentional about how you're spending your time. I love that you're setting a timer. I always set timers, talk to my clients about setting timers, just really planning out what you're going to do and actually doing it, because otherwise, instead of running your business, it's going to run you, and you're not going to reach those goals and reach those outcomes that you really want. So I love that.
In my own personal experience, if I didn't make that transition, I was going to wear myself down. I was going to quit. I was going to go back to corporate America because it's way easier for me to sit in a desk and someone tell me what to do. I don't want to use the word failed, but I would have failed as a business owner if I would have given up. And so I think it's so, so important to be able to identify, what tasks that need to be accomplished, be able to schedule those tasks, like you said, but more than anything, you hit on the head, which is thought processes, making sure you're changing any of those negatives to positive. Because normally if I'm scrolling, right, like I'm like over here, like on like Instagram or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that's procrastination because I
Right.
don't want to do something. And so if I'm procrastinating, I need to figure out why I'm procrastinating because I'm holding myself back. So is there a fear of putting something out that somebody's going to say they hate? Like, what is the underlying thing that's going on? And that's the hardest part. And once you're able to figure that out and then talk yourself off that ledge,
Mm-hmm.
then you're able to really be productive and put out some amazing stuff that impacts other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that awareness is huge because oftentimes we don't even realize that we're procrastinating. We think that we're really busy, and we may be busy. Busy is totally different than being productive, right? So when you're really productive and getting those results, then you're going to reach your goals. But when you're busy, then it can trick your brain into thinking that you're actually doing the right things to grow your business. But really, you have to sit back and take an honest look of how you're spending your time so that you can tweak and make those changes that you need to make.
Okay, so I have to share this with you. I hate the word busy. And if I catch myself using the word busy, I completely and ultimately change it to say, I had a really productive day. It has taken me a very long time. But when someone tells me, I'm so busy, I'm like, really? I just saw your name pop up on social media and you are posting all day. Like, that's not really busy, because we just think that if we're moving, doing something, or, whatever it may be, driving in the car, you are busy. But it's like, no, like you're either productive or you are just wasting time. So
Exactly.
yes.
You see somebody on the street and they're like, "Oh, how have you been?" "Oh, I've been busy." Yeah, it's like a state of mind. You can choose to be busy or you can choose to actually be productive and get things done and make progress.
And I will tell you this, when I'm busy, I don't have any time in my day. When I'm productive, I have time at night to read. I get up and, I do meditation, drink my coffee, I take the dog for a walk, I journal, like I have my thing. But if I'm busy, then I get up in the morning and I immediately jump on the computer and start checking email because like my mind's going, it's like, it's that mindset shift and it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
Karla, this was amazing, amazing. If anyone resonates with you watching this and viewing this, how can they get in touch with you? I know that you have a Facebook group, and do you offer any 30-minute calls for anyone that may be interested in chatting with you and working with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my Facebook group is Mamas Making Profits with Purpose. And you can probably guess we talk about productivity, working smarter, how to grow a more profitable business. So I would love to have you join me if you're interested. And also, I do offer free calls. So if you find that you're constantly getting distracted, or you're procrastinating, or you're just not sure how to get more structure into your day, my free calls are Ditch Distractions and Get Things Done.
I will put the link for your Facebook group and for your call in the description.
Okay, perfect.
So are there any last remaining tips or advice that you could give someone that is, launching their business and they're probably in that state of feeling overwhelmed and, they're getting all of this information from all these different influencers or, this is the way to make $7 million, follow this formula. What would your advice be?
I would say number one, you're not alone. Everyone goes through that phase. Everyone that I've talked to has gone through that. And just take a step back and go back to basics. Don't worry about needing 10 different things that people talk about that you need. Like, this is the framework you need or the steps you need to take. Just go back to basics and look at what you absolutely need to do to start getting clients in the door. And finally, just don't give up. Like you said, you're not failing if you keep on going. Just don't give up. Keep moving forward in your business and you will get there.
All right. Thank you, Karla, for being here. You were a wealth of information. I'm going to go and leave here and redo my schedule for today and for the rest of the week. But thank you so much for tuning into the Wednesday wrap up, and we will see you next Wednesday.